think, the best advice I've ever received professionally. And she says, you know, when you get feedback, rule number 1 is ask for more. And then rule number 2, see rule number 1. There is only one rule. And so she said that, and I filed it away as a nice to know. Didn't give it much thought. And then fast forward years later, I was a supervisor in the university arena, which was my previous career. And I remember I went to something much like this. It was a conference, and it was specifically on supervising. And I remember they said to us, you know, when you go back to your departments on campus, you should ask your staff for their input. You know, at your one-on-one meetings, why don't you ask them for suggestions on how to improve the department? Sounded good. Well, I went back. I couldn't wait. You know how when you leave these conferences, you're like, okay, I can't wait to try out all this new stuff. So I went back. I was all excited. I had the one-on-one. I was sitting there with the guy, and I said, what do you think we can do to improve the department? I'm going to say word for word what he said, but I am going to share with you non-verbally how my evil twin heard it. You know, we have the evil twin who lives over here on the sidelines who would say the stuff that would get us fired, get us in trouble, ruin the relationship. I'm sure he didn't do all this nonverbal stuff, but I said, what do you think we can do to improve the department? He said, well, you can be a better supervisor. I do not think he did his shoulders like this. I do not think that his hands were on his hip. But he sure did say you could be a better supervisor. Warning, warning, red alert, write him up, insubordinate. That was the evil twin hollering from the sidelines. I was about to do that. How dare he say I can be a better supervisor? And then I remembered that wisdom from my mentor those years earlier. When you get negative feedback or criticism, ask for more. So I said to him when he said you could be a better supervisor, I said, well, how do you mean? I would have chosen to say, can you elaborate? Can you be more specific? Can you give me some examples? But I happened to on that day said, how do you mean? He says, well, Sarita, some of us were talking. Do you ever notice nothing good ever follows that statement? Some of us were talking. And we realize we have no idea what you think about how we're doing on a day-to-day basis. Got nothing. What do you suggest? He says, well, how about when we have our one-on-one meetings, you tell us one thing we're really doing well, and then maybe one thing we can work on. Okay. I tried it. It was brilliant. And he was right. And I thought, wow, what a different outcome that would have been had I said insubordinate and wrote him up. That would have been a whole different outcome. So I really think to this day, all those years ago in grad school, that mentor probably gave me the best advice that I've ever received. And I invite you to think of that rule number 1 whenever someone says something maybe you didn't want to hear. Think about that rule number 1. Ask for more.